on the billies and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This a we we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me. My name is Ufa. Belize me come from the Belize city area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago, talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me. My name is Ufa. Belize me come from the Belize city area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me. Maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala.
Good morning and welcome to Sunday Review for the second time. We had our false start just now. Human Experiences.
Good morning.
I'm Sister YaYa Marin Coleman. I'm the producer and co-host of Sunday Review, the only news review talk show in Belize. And the tag is Making Sense of the News. Today is Sunday, April 19, 2026. We have 3 guests. That's not a lot, but I see why. The only difference this morning, I don't have my co-host with me, Brother Akamatota. Couldn't control it, he couldn't be here, but no say, we are missing, because Brother Akota the pepper in the pot. He did invite our guest, so we have 2 Belizeans and 1 person from Trinidad and Tobago, and the conversation this morning will be all about labor struggles in the Caribbean. We have to go back before we come forward, but I can introduce the guests. So we're going with the elder first. So we have Sister Dorla Staine. Currently, she is the spokesperson for the Belize Energy Workers for Justice. And we also have Sister Christine Perriott, former General Secretary for the Belize Communication Workers for Justice. Now she identifies as a trade unionist and a former BTL employee. And we have our brother Idi Staurt, who is the president of Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association, TTRNA, from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning, sisters and brother.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasant morning to you and your listeners.
How do you feel this morning?
Powerful, man, powerful. To be in the presence of great company.
Give thanks.
Sunday after the...
Give thanks. Give thanks. Okay, I want to ask you to tell me a little bit about yourself. Want to feel comfortable with sharing because the spectrum of unionism that all 3 of you do. Well, I know that must be about 60 years, because, well, more than 60. So, Sister Dorla, tell me a little bit about yourself so people could get familiar with you and the work that you've been doing as it relates to labor struggles.
Okay, I'm Dorla Staine. Currently member of the Belize Energy Workers for Justice, a new group that has been formed since most members of our group went on retirement. But prior to that, I started working at the Belize Electricity Limited in 1978. I was 20 years old, and about 3 years later, in 1981, my brother worked with, we formed known as the Belize Energy Workers Union, a union that we represent ourselves to the Belize Electricity Limited. Before that, we had a union representing us. And then, as soon as we formed the union, we went into bargaining. We have completed a CBA that covers several areas of interest and benefits for the workers. I stayed working with the company for my entire life, and I retired in 2018, and now I am retired at home. But I served the union at that time.
Thank you, sis. Sister Christine, tell her and leave it by yourself.
Hi, Christine. I am from the telecommunications sector. Belize Telemedia Limited, the biggest, well, they're still the #1 telecommunication company employer in Belize. I had started 1990 and 17 years continuous service in and as a general secretary of the Belize Communication Workers Union. During dispute, the employer terminated my services because of engaging in union activities. So my story is more being in the union from 1990 I started up to 2007 when my services was ended. This the reason why I am, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share. Was a part of the Belize Communication Workers for Justice, which is a sister company with Sister Dorla, championing the same cause where we have a labor provision that the our past employer is violating, is in breach of, is in non-compliance of. And so we're advocating and educating and towards the Labor Department to enforce these enforce the provision, as this matter is about workers throughout the country of Belize.
Thank you, Brother Idi.
Yes, well, I am a registered mental nurse, oncology nurse. Have been part of our nursing association, which is 95 years old. However, we became a union only in 2014. And since then, we have, grown the membership from, over, well, just around 400 persons to 4,000 and growing. I became president in 2016 and remain president at this time in 2026. And we have been engaging in a number of changing the perspective of nursing and midwifery personnel, where before we became a union, we depended heavily on the Public Service Association to speak on our behalf. But following a mandate by our International Council of Nurses organization that nursing and midwifery personnel begin to speak on their own behalf, we took up that challenge. So, and that is when we took the decision to become a union in 2014, and we have been doing everything since then.
Respect.
Yeah, it's been an uphill task, but we have been ready for the challenge. Yeah.
Of those 4,000 nurses, how much of them are males?
Out of probably 1%.
So that's about how much?
Probably about about 40.
Wow. So it's still not very normalized to have men as nurses, at least in Trinidad and Tobago.
No, it's not normalized, with the exception of the psychiatric nursing personnel. That's the bulk of where male nurses reside currently, operate from.
It's probably the same in other Caribbean countries as well. You have nurses, but you have more women as nurses than men.
Yeah. And we are extremely short of nursing and midwifery personnel, like the rest of the world. And it is is something that we're really trying to target the minds of the population to see nursing as a viable option for not only for their girl children, but definitely for their boy children. So it is something we're trying to change the image, trying to, as the rest of the world have seen it as a profession and not just as the doctor's orderly, as it were. All of those battles we have. And it also plays into what nursing and midwifery personnel are paid in Trinidad and Tobago because of that mindset. Yeah. So
Respect.
those are just some of the challenges. Yeah.
Respect. I mean, one friend this morning conversation, we have to go there's an African concept called Sankova. We'll look back to your past, get the best of what we'll learn from the past for using it at the present and the future. So when we're talking about labor struggles in the Caribbean, we have to frame it based on power, exploitation of natural resources, and people's labor. So you look for the enslavement of primarily African people, and in the Belize context, people have always resisted when it comes to what we just say labor rights, but it's also human rights. So looking at that, like in Belize, it would be, you had resistance in the 1700s, and then in the Caribbean, it would be more of a plantation-based economy. But there's always a power dynamic between the enslaved workers, they're forced for work, they don't even look upon them as human beings, and then the enslaver or whoever the work for the enslaver. And then you move forward. So you've had that resistance of enslaved people. After August 1st, 1838, African chattel enslavement ended legally for African people. And then you have other people resisting, organizing, educating themselves, resisting. That eventually grows into associations or then labor unions. And then this is where we are today. But out of that, there's always this happening on a capitalist playing field. So you always have the capitalists and you have the employees. Now, if the employees not work, the capitalist system would collapse. So it's that the exploitation of people's labor that you could have money and everything else will come along with that money. So there's always a class struggle. You have working class people and you have what I call the ruling class or the predators. It's a predatory class because it's exploiting labor. So it's not like a lot has changed. So one big part of this conversation is labor laws and labor departments in the English-speaking Caribbean. And the labor department work for the state. The employees may work for the state or private sector. So I'd ask, I don't have to wait for me to jump in this conversation and ask what the phone experience as labor workers or unionists when it comes to working with the union and the labor department. Anybody who want to go ahead, answer the question.
Well, I do want to say, in the situation that is occurring right now that we were sharing with Brother Idi, behind the scenes, the situation with BEL and us BTL, the Belize Telecommunication Limited and Belize Electricity Limited, for for Brother Idi to understand instead of saying BTL and BEL. We also, in extending from what you're saying, there was this CCJ matter that came out, and it's interesting when you talk about the labor laws is also extended from colonial exploitation and uneven power. And it is the interpretation of the CCJ came out that the labor law is there to protect workers, and the enactment of having the labor department and a labor commissioner and a minister of labor is like the proof to show that, hey, we're enacting this law, and when I say protection of the workers, it's across the board. Protect managers, protect both both the employer, the worker, the management area, the management sector, and the worker sector. So I wanted to add that to yours, that indeed it does, the labor laws themselves does extend from colonial exploitation and uneven power. So
and I would say the same too, yeah. As you speak to African heritage, when I first started at BEL, if we go a little bit back, our population, we had more people going to the darker skinned people, Creoles, who were working. And when I started at BL, when I look around, most of our brothers or people from that descent are working out on the lines and in on engines and as it pertains to electricity. We haven't had females too working in the offices, but at that time females were in the minority. It has changed a bit over time, and we are seeing a mix in the population. And as we are closer to the Central American countries, we are seeing definitely a change where the African descent is getting lesser. However, I can say, speaking to those linemen back in the days, when we were doing collective bargaining or things of such, those brothers were very powerful. They were passionate about um, the matters and affairs concerning their well-being as a part of the union. And so when we as executive, I was the general secretary, and then we have the president, we had full backing coming from them. And as we move forward today, where we are now um, looking down on this severance matter, where the company is denying to pay the older workers who are now mostly retired and asking for their severance payment, we see that same force and power coming from that dynamic of people.
yes.
We do brothers, but you see a little less in strength as the years unfold. And so when we are out there in the street, we can depend on those past brothers that they are the ones who are really fueling this thing. No? And myself as the general secretary, well, being privileged to be there over the years, they work along with me. And so the injustices part that is coming out towards the workers, we see where BL is is treating us in is treating us not right,
Yes.
because um, the CCJ has made its ruling, and as a people we approached them in February of this year just to sit with us and let us examine this ruling and how it impacts us, because we have get our severance, not severance, we have gotten our pension payment, but now we know that we are due our severance. And BL is saying they have discharged that, which is not the truth, because they are using their pension contributions to say that is their payment. And that's why we, as the older workers, are out there in the street demanding our fair due. And we also call on the minister and the labor commissioner, who has the authority to enforce the act.
Brother Idi, what do you have to say as it relates to the power dynamics and the exploitation historically within the English-speaking Caribbean, and how that has trickled down to the reality of the labor struggles we have today in the Caribbean?
Well, it's the founding principles. It's the founding principle is what basically unions were created to push back on. And definitely we see it on a daily basis at the Nursing Association, and we see it globally. And as my colleague Christine was saying, we were just having a similar discussion. And I was identifying a grave injustice that was done to a group of workers in Trinidad and Tobago. A group of workers. Imagine this. Imagine you working for a company in excess of 30 years. That company would have changed hands from private to government, then back to private. That company would have made billions of dollars based on it's an international company. Metal Steel would have made billions of dollars, would have grown their wealth based on the backs of workers in Trinidad and Tobago. And because the workers stood up for their rights in a particular wage dispute, took the matter to the industrial court, won the matter at the industrial court, the employer almost vindictively decide to shut the company down and leave without paying severance to thousands of workers who would have been employed in that company in excess of 10, 20, 30 years, leaving those workers to fend for themselves without any pension. And this is the new dynamic unions must face going forward as these international companies try to eke out every dollar, every cent from the working class to drive down the labor costs in whichever country they go to maximize the profit for themselves and their shareholders. We as unions have to continuously push back on these unfair practices and also ensure the requisite labor legislation is created to safeguard a few future instances of these things. But these things will only get more and more complex, more and more dynamic as globalization expands and companies look for alternatives to the high labor cost in the Western markets. They are looking towards so-called third world countries to try to maximize on their profits. Yeah.
We will definitely flesh out in the next 60 minutes or so more about the Caribbean Court of Justice ruling or interpretation of the Belize labor law and severance. And we'll see the similarities, for example, like you just shared, Brother Idi. But right now I want to know, from Trio, who used to work in the union, I find that oftentimes the members of unions not know as much as the people in the executive. So, I don't know if you can recall any intentional awareness campaign, education within the membership for ensure that they really build knowledge about for their labor struggles and then not left it up to people for talk for them all the time. How important it is to tell your own stories and have your own narratives.
Yeah, it's
Yes. From our standpoint, as the executive, there are times we do offer training and workshop, and in areas where we may not be too familiar, we even reach out to the Congress, to other unions, and sometimes we have forums and conferences where we send our people to those conferences within the country, depending on the matter that they would be discussing. And so definitely there is training going on to teach our members. But I must say too that as an executive, what I find sometimes what is not in the best interest of the worker is that sometimes themselves just decide, well, you as executive, you take care of that. You go do your thing and we pay our dues. And so you find that sometimes does not work out too well because the burden sometimes is on the executive arm. where you need all the members come in and form that forge. There are also instances to where the company at times may cause um, interruptions that you may request to send certain people at trainings, and they have the decision to say whether they will release that employee or not. So there's various things that sometimes hamper training, but all in all, the unions do forge forward and do its best to inform members. And when we do our CBAs, we try to explain all aspects of the CBAs for them to be better informed.
Thanks, Sister Christine and Brother Idi.
Well, you want to go, Brother Idi?
No,
Okay.
no, you first.
I well, because the union that I was involved with was also in Belize, and we were also sister union with Sister Dorla's union. Under the National Trade Union Congress, we try to be a part of the NTUCB, the National Trade Union Congress, like the umbrella union, so that we could listen to each other unions and listen to what workers from this different utility or different industry or represent, and how we can help one another. At the time when I was a Gen Sec of the Belize Communication Workers Union, our issue was representing, bargaining for our membership. And then we came to a point where we felt like unionism, solidarity is not something that is just on paper, like in our collective bargaining agreement, or just speak about it. We also felt it was something you had to enact. So for us, solidarity was a big issue. And we were of the stance that if you pass knowledge on and you keep sharing knowledge and you keep having your meeting with your membership and enlighten them of the today's issues and issues that other brothers and sisters are suffering or facing, whenever there is a need for call for unity and a need for call for solidarity, we can make a decision that yes, we hear you, what can we do, and then we take action. And to the point where our union was only representing the communication workers within our company, and we changed that to become a general workers union, because we wanted to help the Radical Center, because that is a company that started in Belize and still growing in Belize and other third world countries. The same thing like what Brother Idi was saying. These colonial companies come out and they go to the third world countries for cheaper labor. So because of we are more, for us, because the labor law is there, where you can use as the authoritative body to ensure you have fair labor practices and fair wages, benefits, and all that. We used to always we're cognizant that the labor law is not a suggestion booklet. It's a binding law. So whatever, if like we would go out on a training, we come back, we would try to have meetings at least with the liaison officer in our aspect, in our body, in our executive and organization, and share knowledge and ask them to just share it, trickle it downwards. And then also have, when we have our general membership, we also have, apart from having like what Sister Dorla is saying, we share that knowledge. We try to partake it in not a formal setting of strict class, but we talk about it. We have a little discussion. We hear different point of views, and then we have a little side gathering and bonding, like we have games and just simple meet, greet, and have some food. And for us, that was one of our biggest way of sharing our knowledge and remaining cognizant of what's going on and being in solidarity and like ready, indeed, not just words.
Thanks, Sister Christine. Brother Idi?
Yes, I'm really cognizant of the era that we are living in as trade union persons. We are living in an era where the collective is less important than the individual. We're living in a very individualistic time in our period. When you hear some of our labor leaders speaking, our elders, and we have a number of stalwarts in the labor fraternity in Trinidad and Tobago, like the rest of the Caribbean, they will operate in a time where that shared purpose, that nationhood, that will that everyone, a rising tide will raise all boats. That mindset that it's not me, it's not I, but is all of us. The community of interest is the ultimate purpose. But we have, over the years, we have sort of lost that that drive within, at least in our population in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's more self-centered. Why should I be part of that movement? Why should I expend my time? Why should I be away from my family when the evening come? Why should I go to a workshop or to hear about people speaking about these global issues? So it has and we in Trinidad and Tobago really have suffered a lot from some of the American media. Some of the surface very trivial type of, and even on social media, depending on what the algorithm believes you are interested in, it will only pop up those on your feed. So even if you were to do, what the younger persons are really gravitating to, they don't watch news, they're not going to come to workshops on trade unionism or teachings on solidarity. They're not going to come to these things, even if you try to reach out via social media. The content is not what is going to pop up on their feed, even if you try to make it as attractive as possible. So we're really operating in a very difficult time, and really and truly, the only time where we would get a real robust turnout on labor issues is when we're speaking about money. When we're speaking about money. So preparing persons' mindset for the challenge that is ahead is a really a difficult one, and is something that we're constantly learning and finding innovative ways to try to reach the hearts of minds of the younger ones. The older ones who have that mindset, yes, but the younger ones, and it's really an uphill task for us at the Nursing Association in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's a difficult one that I guess all unions across the Caribbean will have to treat with it. Yeah?
I agree. We have to go to a break, but also one of the reasons why we have such low membership in unions globally. And if you know to look after your own interests, then you can't expect nobody could genuinely look after your interests for you. So I appreciate the varied experiences in a unionism from Belize, from the 70s to where we are in 2026, Trinidad and Tobago. For here, the real challenges, because you have to analyze it to figure out how we could come up with solutions and know for sure that we need to do it collectively, and we are just talking fun after we come off our next break. So thank you for joining me. And stay tuned for the next 60 minutes of reasoning about labor struggles in the Caribbean. Break time.
your body sculpted with gym equipment and accessories from Benny's. Quality and savings.
Belize wakes up connected to opportunity. And across our country, the work to keep Belize connected continues. SMART continues expanding our network across the country, bringing stronger coverage to more communities. With recent service enhancements in areas at Blue Creek and Progresso, Belize City, Orange Rock, and more on the way. We're bringing education closer to home, empowering entrepreneurs to grow their businesses, supporting industries that drive our economy, and keeping families connected wherever life takes them. With every expansion, we are investing in the infrastructure that moves Belize forward. Because connection isn't just about signal, it's about opportunity, progress, and the future we are building together. SMART, bringing people together.
I was overwhelmed. I don't even know how to talk right now.
Estamos súper emocionados, estoy temblando, súper agradecida con todo. Ellos súper felices.
I received a whole 2-bedroom house for me and my son and my daughter right here. So it's more than emotional. Thanks very much.
I'm grateful as a single parent right now to actually own one.
I feel like a load has been lifted off my shoulder receiving this key today. Currently, I'm living with my sister. I'm invading her privacy, so this changes a lot, not only for me, but for her.
I'm like, keep on my knees. I keep on praying and I keep on asking God, let this be successful this time, because I have already tried 4 times. Everything done, baby. Everything done. No more hunger, no more starvation.
We want to thank the Ministry of Housing. We want to thank Minister Julius, the members of the housing team that were able to partner with us, partner with Fort George to be able to provide for these ladies.
I'm very grateful that we have this program that can support individuals like her who are, trying to live the right way and trying to provide for their families. Our job is to support them and to give them a lifting hand.
All families are deserving of a dignified home. All children are certainly deserving of having their own place. I believe in this government, I believe in the ministry, the minister, the leadership of MIDH, and I believe in the leadership of our Prime Minister, Honorable John Briceño.
Thank you.
En Atlantic Bank, tu comodidad es nuestra prioridad. Nuestro centro de contacto está diseñado para mejorar tu experiencia bancaria, con una amplia gama de opciones de servicio al cliente. Ahorras tiempo y esfuerzo. Puedes llamar fácilmente para bloquear o desbloquear tus tarjetas de débito y crédito, realizar consultas de cuentas y acceder a información detallada de tus tarjetas. Ya sea que necesites asistencia con la banca en línea, apoyo para comercios o consultas generales, nuestro equipo está listo para ayudarte. Para mayor comodidad, si todos los operadores están ocupados, puedes dejar tu número y un operador te devolverá la llamada lo antes posible, para asegurarse de que recibas el apoyo que necesitas. Para mayor seguridad, es posible que necesitemos verificar tu identidad con un conjunto de preguntas sencillas. Recuerda, Atlantic Bank nunca solicitará tu nombre de tu usuario ni contraseña de Atlantic Online por llamada telefónica, mensaje de texto o correo electrónico. asegurando que tu información personal permanezca segura y protegida. Nuestro equipo de apoyo está disponible de lunes a viernes, de 8 a.m. a 6 p.m. en inglés y en español. Simplemente marca al 223-1212. Esta es la línea dedicada para nuestro centro de contacto. Atlantic Bank se compromete a brindarte un servicio excepcional y las herramientas que necesitas para administrar tus finanzas de manera conveniente y segura. Aprovecha al máximo nuestro servicio del centro de contacto.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
Guatemala. This a me we we da figure. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the help on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Country bad love them homeland. We'll never give it up to another nation. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala.
Our labor struggles in the Caribbean reasoning with Sister Dorla, Sister Christine, and Brother Idi. Oh, before I get myself in trouble, today is the 78th Earth Day of Brother Cliff Lewis. Brother Cliff that the glue wrong here when it comes to technical support, engineering, dedicated years of his life. And we really value Brother Cliff for the human being he is, and for his technical skills, for his calm attitude. They are definitely an elder now. Happy Earth Strong, Brother Cliff.
Yeah, happy Earth Day, Brother Cliff.
Okay, so thanks sisters and brother. Back to our conversations. I want me to talk about the relevance of becoming knowledgeable, and then Brother Idi make the point that like old school think collective, but new school about me. And so that's a part of, not only in a unionism, but we also throughout the Caribbean, that a betrayal of what we call the middle class. People come from working class families, give an opportunity to get colonial papers known as degrees, and however they get them positions, and then we think that they are be different from the colonizers, that they are look out for we in a meaningful way. But over and over again, we find that then they look out for self, material gains, and people lose hope. So I don't know what solutions think possible, and especially like Brother Edith said, times have changed. So especially for the young people who are usually the majority in our populations, how you reach them people, because they have become laborers either informally or formally in any economic system. So how do we reach those people? Because the knowledge sharing important. Both Belize Communication Workers for Justice and Belize Energy Workers for Justice depend on active sensitization. It's called Run the Retro. If you go to BCWJ Facebook page, when I say the importance of sharing what is severance, but they're not only about severance, they're about labor rights. So most people, most workers don't know what that ain't right. So if they get chance, they don't know when they get chance. Even if they get chance, what they could do? Can they need the job? And if they get bold and try form a union or join a union, especially outside of, let's say, the public service, it's very challenging. So what people for do at this point, looking at labor concerns, what are some of the labor concerns on here generally in the communities we want to live? What are some labor concerns?
Well, I'm not in the workforce anymore, but looking around you see younger persons working like Sister Christine mentioned earlier, we have the industry with the call centers and that sort of thing. And a whole lot of workers are employed under that sector now. But as an elder, I notice where these workers, yes, they are working and they are getting paid, but the mentality of the employers there is like, it's like you go to work, but it's like really getting back to like real hard labor. It seems sometimes that those workers, I don't know if they could really use the bathroom at a certain time. You hear these things when in places these workers are complaining. One of the sad reality that is that the turnover is great because they are being terminated instantly for little things. And so they roam from one center to the next, and you always see them calling for more workers. I think industry, the labor department definitely have to step up there. Trade unions as well. To try and get to help these workers. I must say, I heard of a sister, I think her name is Sister Longford, a young female who has joined the NTUCB and is appealing to younger workers like herself to come forward and let young people step up and let us get the industries and unions and benefits and protection going. One of the other things I think would help tremendously, we have the labor laws, we have it's out there that you can access it. But we go back in time where there was a time that you have those little booklets, they could put the important information in smart booklets, do pocket size booklets that every worker get a copy of those things that tell them their rights. And they can, and the union should be behind it to push that the workers get it. And even if labor department does not do that, the union could take on that responsibility and start to promote those books. I find it's very good that when you could pull a small booklet and start to read and make yourself more knowledgeable, it surely would help.
But one of the challenges now is a number for people are struggling readers. I'm serious, like struggling readers. And so I said, because times have changed, people might not be reading, they're not reading like they used to. So a lot of libraries close, newspapers fold. And so like listening to knowledge, that one of the things is seeing that young people willing to do, even though they may appear to have one shorter attention span. So there's a certain segment of the population that would read, but then I think there's a larger population that would not read. Make I hear what you got to say, Sister Christina and Brother Idi.
Well, from my view, from the time being in the union, and even now, I hold the accountability on the labor department. The employer will be the employer. They will always try to abuse the system, oppress workers, and get the maximum they could for a little bit of nothing. That's the corporate mentality. But every nation in the Caribbean have labor laws to protect workers. But if you have the state or the parliament or the authoritative body not acting, then workers injustices will prevail. If you do not have, for example, right now, what is I can see dominant in Belize, workers are being terminated at will, no cause. It doesn't matter if there is a cause, they just terminate. And when there is cause, the labor department, protected by workers, protected by the labor laws, are supposed to be enforced. It's the same with the severance pay provision that myself and Sister Dorla we're engaged with. They have these the labor laws is the legal legislative that protects the workers, and it's workers across. It's not only telecommunication workers, electricity workers. We're talking about from hotel workers, restaurant workers, bus drivers. If you work like Princess at the casino, you name it, at the hospital, you name it, workers across. These laws are put in place for the very thing we started talking about, the colonial mentality and the uneven levels of how mothers try, because employers always have an upper edge in terms of having money. They could hire the best attorney, they could just push a worker to use the system, and because they know that the authoritative body is not enforcing these laws, they will push it. For example, as is what is occurring with the severance, we have former workers that are like 20 years, 30 years, haven't been paid this severance, which has now become a debt. And then you have the laws. The laws have teeth where there is penalties. You can have criminal charges up to even 6 months imprisonment. But if you don't have the labor department that will enforce these laws, then you can understand why the generation coming up will have a fear that, best I just work and keep my head down and do what I could, because yes, we have a right to work and we have a right to earn, but we need that money to live. We need it to pay our rent. We need to put food on the table. We need to pay for a child's education and to have to live in a way comfortable for us and for our families. So if we feel that if there are laws that are supposed to protect us, but if it's not being enforced by the same authoritative body, for example, with the Belize labor law, if the labor department is not enforcing the laws, it simply shows that they're choosing a side. They're choosing the employer's side and just leaving the workers out there to be oppressed and to go through these hardship. And that is why, in my opinion, that I would find now when we're moving more from a collectiveness to more me. If it doesn't affect me, well, too bad. I'm not going to partake. I'm not going to stand up. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to stay here until it starts affecting me. Then, oh wow, I want everybody to jump in for me. So I have seen bus service, the immigration officers, port authority, former, and those are current workers, and also seen from former workers having issue, all going and stemming back from the labor law, which is supposed to be legislative to protect workers, and the body that's supposed to enforce they're not. So if you have all these laws but not enforced, then what is it can the worker say or expect, or it becomes difficult when there is non-compliance or there is violation and you think you're going to be helped and it's not. So when those action take place, is to me would be an appropriate measure, how it would encourage this generation. When will the authoritative body, in the case of Belize and all this, when will the Ministry of Labor, when will the Labor Commissioner, when will the Minister of Labor, and even extend it to the Parliament, to the Prime Minister, to the Deputy Prime Minister, to all those members of the House, of the Parliament, who are there for good governance, ensure that labor rights is not an optional matter, and enforce what is there to ensure that we have fair labor practices, fair wages, increases when increases are deserved, and fair benefits. That it's not like the workers are begging for anything else except for exercise what the law says. If there is that, I believe that this generation would more like would feel like, you know what, some level of confidence, some level of hope, and maybe perhaps become what it was in the past, more collective, more as they see something, they'll go like, how can I help you? Instead of sitting back and say, well, that's not affecting me, I'm just going to sit here and wait.
I think a part of that is that we need to study history, because we have bought into that that's what the Labor Department was designed for. And if you study history, the capitalists never just decided, look man, we want to look out for the workers. It's because workers self-organized, were knowledgeable, and based on the rebellions and uprisings, let's say up to the 30s, they sent out the, I think it was the Foster Commission in Trinidad in the 1937 and the Moyne Commission in 1938. And they're like, look here, we have to create the Labor Act and this Labor Department for settle them people down before they riot turn into real rebellion or revolution. So that never let them look out for we interests. So we need to understand why they were really created. I mean, of course, we have to advocate for our own interests, but know that them people interests, they're not for we interests. For their interests, they're capital interests. They're not about the workers. So we can't expect them people genuinely, and with the sip and with lived experience, they're not look out for we. Brother Idi, your 2 cents.
Well, there's so much to be said, and I could probably piggyback from where you left off. You know, the whole purpose of that Industrial Relations Act in Trinidad and the Industrial Court came out because of the Industrial Stabilization Act, which came about because of all the unrest that was taking place at the time. And, you know, I envision the same sort of unrest, national unrest, will come about in a not too distant future, because some of the same contextual environmental challenges that faced the workers back then are showing up once more. And it is insidious, it is slowly growing. Persons may not be very conscious of it, because again, we're living in our own silos, and persons are definitely not reading. I could tell you that with a fact. And that is why, if you don't have, as a unionist, if you don't have the media on your side or your own social media outlets, persons are not going to pick up on your commentary, and they will just go with what the headline states. They're not going into the story. And persons need to understand, and well, we're seeing it in Trinidad and Tobago, and is the constant degradation of the middle class, what we could have called the middle class, and it's slowly being eroded on a continuous basis, where really it is only 2 classes currently mean the wealthy, and there will be subdivisions of the wealthy, from rich to filthy rich, to you know, and then you have the poor, and you have subdivisions of the poor, and you often find now government workers are part which once used to be considered part of the middle class, all your teachers, your nurses, your what have you, but they are now part of the poor, but just called working poor. So you do not have a living wage. Your wage is just to do two things: pay bills and hand it over to the wealthy class. That's the only purpose you are currently working, and we seeing more and more of that taking place. You know, one of the questions you would have asked when you came back from the break is what can be done to stem this tide? What can be done for the younger generation to really have hope going forward? And an interesting thing happened in Trinidad and Tobago last year, where we had a number of former trade union leaders. Actually, one of the trade union leaders was the former head of our communication workers union, and they were part of a coalition who supported the then opposition, who eventually came into government last year, April 28th. And within the first 6 months, we had real hope that some of our comrades who we stood side by side and protested on the street, demonstrated, articulated the same views, who would have championed the cause of workers for decades. It was so sad and shocking that that particular comrade who came from the Communication Workers Union would have made a very unfortunate statement, which is the unions who didn't openly do like them and supported the government who came into power of the day, they should not expect to be treated in the same way as the unions who openly supported the then government. And those were principles that unionism stood on and fought for, and it was an opportunity to ensure the largesse of the state, taxpayers' resources, the material resource of a nation. Trinidad and Tobago is blessed with oil and gas. That belongs to the entire society. It doesn't belong to any political party or any individual who supported a political party. And that really sent shockwaves throughout the labor fraternity, and has really caused a division almost, where persons who hold firm that they will hold all governments to account, regardless of who is in office, and they should not be penalized for doing same. When really and truly you have persons within the government who ought to know better and to be speaking to those capitalists, because the capitalists is definitely speaking to the power brokers. And we would have hoped the labor persons who have now assumed office would also be bringing that labor perspective. So, as I say, I could say much more on this, but I will be here whole day, so I would stop for now.
Yeah. Big thanks. We have to go to a break, but in listening to it make us also think about initially when class real, right? So you have working people and you have the people who are filthy wealthy, and then are usually the employer. But initially, working class people, and they never have no colonial papers, they never have no degrees. There are people where work and not satisfied with their living conditions, their housing conditions. They're not satisfied with their quality of life. And then come together, talk about their reality, study the landscape, and the working and then wealthy people host the hair thing, and then figure out how to advocate collectively for themselves. But the labor struggles would always be right next to the political struggle. So it was never separated, but now there's a separation. So at the time, they want political independence or the right to vote, and then everyday people, they struggle for the just liberty. Now there's a separation, and quite a bit of them people, and you make one recent comment about somebody that Trinidad lately, but one large amount of we people betray we and line up with political parties, and for their loyalty to them parties, And oftentimes the parties are supported by the bag of money people. So it's up to the everyday people now to organize enough of our own interests and learn the system and use it for betterment. We'll take a final break. When we come back, time to go by quick. And we'll have to take some time for look specifically on the Caribbean Court of Justice ruling of November 5th. Because it impacts people who still use the Caribbean Court of Justice as their final appeals court, which are, I think, 4 other Caribbean countries. Just talk one little bit about severance, because we are here with Brother Idi have to say about severance in Trinidad and Tobago. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
I was overwhelmed. I don't even know how to talk right now.
Estamos súper emocionados, estoy temblando, súper agradecida con todo. Ellos súper felices.
I received a whole 2-bedroom house for me and my son and my daughter right here. So it's more than emotional.
Thanks very much.
I'm grateful as a single parent right now to actually own one.
I feel like a load has been lifted off my shoulder receiving this key today. Currently, I'm living with my sister. I'm invading her privacy, so this changes a lot, not only for me, but for her.
I'm like, keep on my knees. I keep on praying and I keep on asking God, let this be successful this time, because I have already tried 4 times.
Everything done, baby. Everything done. No more hunger, no more starvation.
We want to thank the Ministry of Housing. We want to thank Minister Julius, the members of the housing team that were able to partner with us, partner with Fort George to be able to provide for these ladies.
I'm very grateful that we have this program that can support individuals like her who are, trying to live the right way and trying to provide for their families. Our job is to support them and to give them a lifting hand.
All families are deserving of a dignified home. All children are certainly deserving of having their own place. I believe in this government. I believe in the ministry, the minister, the leadership of MIDH, and I believe in the leadership of our Prime Minister, Honorable John Briceño.
Thank you.
For decades, BEL has powered Belize's growth and progress, lighting homes, energizing industries, and fueling national development. But in a world reshaped by extreme weather patterns, digital transformation, and evolving customer needs, the future of energy demands a new approach. The future of energy is now, and it's not just about new technology, it's about people and how we use, manage, and store power smarter. BEL is leading the transformation, blending modern advancements with the wisdom of sustainable energy practices. Integrating technologies will redefine how Belize produces and uses energy. With distributed generation and smart grid technologies, customers are becoming power partners. Energy is no longer a one-way street. BEL is making key investments that will reinforce the grid to make this a reality, ensuring energy security for generations. At BEL, we are more than an energy provider. We work to safeguard Belize's energy future, which will have demand response programs, where customers will be able to shift use during peak hours to take advantage of the new time of use or off-peak rate structures, customer energy portals, real-time insights and tools to track usage and manage energy smarter, smart metering, advanced metering infrastructure, faster, safer service, and actionable energy insights. Distributed generation, integrating rooftop solar, microgrids, and battery storage for two-way power flows into the national grid. Together, we are bringing you a brighter tomorrow.
Belize wakes up connected to opportunity. And across our country, the work to keep Belize connected continues. SMART continues expanding our network across the country, bringing stronger coverage to more communities. With recent service enhancements in areas at Blue Creek and Progresso, Belize City, Orange Walk, and more on the way. We're bringing education closer to home, empowering entrepreneurs to grow their businesses, supporting industries that drive our economy, and keeping families connected wherever life takes them. With every expansion, we are investing in the infrastructure that moves Belize forward. Because connection isn't just about signal, it's about opportunity, progress, and the future we are building together. SMART, bringing people together.
At Atlantic Bank, your convenience is our priority. Our contact center is designed to enhance your banking experience. With a wide range of customer service options, you save time and effort. You can easily call in to block or unblock your debit and credit cards, perform account inquiries, and access detailed card information. Whether you need assistance with online banking, merchant support, or general inquiries, our team is ready to help. For added convenience, if all operators are busy, you can leave your number and an operator will return your call as soon as possible to ensure you receive the support you need. Depending on your transaction type, we may need to verify your identity through a set of security questions. And remember, Atlantic Bank will never request your username or password for Atlantic Online via phone call, text, or email, ensuring your personal information remains safe and secure. Our support team is available Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. in both English and Spanish. Simply dial 223-1212. This is a dedicated line for our contact center. Atlantic Bank is committed to providing you with exceptional service and the tools you need to manage your finances conveniently and securely. Take full advantage of our easy-to-use contact center services today.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together. Have a vision? We've got what you need. From idea to install, Brothers Habet. All your building needs under one roof.
Back to the final segment of Sunday Review. Time flies when you're having fun. So we have to make the answer shorter and crisp so we can make the deadline for 12 o'clock. Sister Christine, what you feel that Belizean workers need to know right now as relates to their rights and severance?
As it relates to severance, I believe workers need to understand the entitlement, how there are different categories and what falls under the what makes your entitlement under the severance, and when the liability arises for the employer. For example, they have the categories between the 5 and the 10 and over, and then they have the conditions where applies to each category, where it's like the employer terminates you or end your service, or you retire at 60 and over, or you resign from the company. and the liability to pay the severance arise the day when your employment ends. What I would like to add to that is that you hear the two groups making, champion this cause and making, doing protests and sharing and educating, trying to synthesize the people, not necessarily only the workers, but the people on a whole. Because we have workers of now, which are like the millennial generation, and then you have the Gen Z on, and then you have those unborn coming up. So, like we have mentioned before, today's us, tomorrow it's you. So it is not just former workers championing this cause for the severance and you just going like, oh, it's not affecting me. It will affect you because come 5 years onward, 10 years onward, and you will either be terminated, retire, or resign. One of them is going to happen. And it's not when it's going to happen. It's not going to, if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. So right now, the workers need to understand that this is their money. It's our money. Severance is something that you are entitled to. It is not a gift. It is not somebody being nice, the employer being nice and say, hey, for your years of service, I'm giving you this. It is just simply, they need to understand that the severance is an obligation from the employer for your long dedicated time at work. You have earned it. You have put in blood, sweat, tears, whatever else you want to throw in, that's what you have earned. And the severance is not a punishment to the employer to say, we're punishing you because you severed the employment of the worker. It is simply just a cushion to when you go leave work, that you have something to rely on, something to help you pay your rent, something to help continue putting food on the table. And so when that doesn't occur and you don't come up and stand up and ensure that these laws, these rights are complied with and not violated, the same thing will happen to you.
Thanks, Sister. Sister Dorla, your final thoughts. What do you want to make sure you tell me today, we don't tell me yet, as a spokesperson for Belize Energy Workers for Justice?
Well, in that position, I want to reiterate that the CCJ ruling have a major impact on us as the older workers. We have received our pension, but the severance is still pending. And as Christine said, Section 183 of the Act ensure workers' entitlement to severance under the condition that applies. Section 193 talk about the penalties when violation takes place, where the minister, under Honorable Harry Musa, we have the Labor Commissioner, Mrs. Stella
Dominguez.
Yes, Pat.
Yes, Pat.
But they have a responsibility to move this act forward. They are the arm of the CCJ ruling. And it doesn't matter how it's taken. Section 194 of the Act also says that that burden remains if the employer does not act and pay the workers their severance. As we were speaking earlier on how we could encourage younger workers, while the onus is on the Labor Department, I also know that as young workers or as any person in this country who feel the pain has to get up. You know the hardship in your households and you know what you feel. Look to the past and then come to the future. we had unions getting up and standing up for rights. And as a people, we have to, don't be putting the politicians before yourselves. Put your family, yourself and your children, and know that my right is my right. And they don't have the right to trample on our rights. But people with power don't move if they don't have people coming at them. And if we want to see improvement in our country, the young people have to come in. They could align themselves with the older workers and say, teach me, I want to know. Because times are getting harder, as we said earlier. We see where the gas prices are. You don't expect it to get any easier, but if we just sit and don't do anything collectively as a people, we will continue to feel. I say to our group, the Belize Energy Workers for Justice and the Belize Energy Workers, the Belize Communication Workers for Justice, we are now out there agitating to get what is rightfully ours. And so I say we keep on pressing, we keep on forging until we get what is ours. We also ask the public to hear our messages that we are sending. It's not just only for us. These two groups, it's for workers across the country, and even as we extend out into the Caribbean, where you have countries like Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Guyana, and St. Lucia who has signed on to the CCJ as their final court of appeal. Those people made a decision from our laws that are there. We as a people need to safeguard and act to get what is rightfully ours. And so we'll move forward.
Big thanks, Sister Dorla. Big thanks. Brother Idi, final thoughts. Brother Idi, we are gone. I go back to Brother Idi, don't have a camera on. So we have to wait for Brother Idi to come on. So this morning, we still have another 8 minutes into the show, and I hope Brother Idi come back on. There you go. Final thoughts for this morning, Brother Idi.
Yes. Well, definitely I concur with my comrades from Belize. And even though, we in Trinidad and Tobago believed we had a fairly robust Industrial Relations Act, not totally 100% pleased with it, but we believed we would have had a number of elements to safeguard the interests of workers, particularly in this topic that we're speaking about in terms of redundancy and termination of benefits and all of those things. That issue with, Asa Metal really pointed out some weaknesses that thankfully the labor fraternity has been able to influence the sitting government to address, where now there's an opportunity. Well, the bill is being laid in Parliament, and it's to soon be proclaimed by the President to make some fundamental changes to our Industrial Relations Act and the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act, where they will be introducing a number of things like temporary layoff, other issues of giving, anytime you go beyond the 90 days for this temporary layoff, then the person is entitled to some terminal benefits, which the employer before could have said, well, look, we could keep you off the job for 6 months, a year. It didn't really pigeonhole the employer. The employer said, well, it's just temporary. We could expand it and whatnot. So that part is certainly pleasing to the labor fraternity in Trinidad and Tobago. There are other elements where it will allow and ensure that where a company packs up and leave, those international companies packs up and leave the shores of the country, that any benefits that must be paid, it is now inscribed that that portion must be remain within the country to be able to give to workers and other creditors that the company may owe. But the worker must be paid first, even before taxes are paid, even before any owed taxes, or even before any creditors get paid. The workers' terminal benefits must be paid. So there's always room for improvement. And, you know, platforms like these allow persons within, the Caribbean basin and regionally, internationally, to see what other countries are doing, see where the shortcomings in one and what solutions have been proffered to plug those gaps. So, from the Nurses Association, we are really pleased to be part of such dialogue, and we hope to always be provided with similar opportunities in the future as we collaboratively work for the interests of the working class. And you can always invite me back in person in Belize. I'll be happy to come to a blessed country like Belize. Thanks so much.
Give thanks, brother. Give thanks to Brother Akko. It was his idea starting January 2025 that we have conversations on focusing on the Caribbean region beyond the headline news and how that impacts the lives primarily of everyday people, and that we need to be connected with one another, because if we not do it, nobody not do it for it. So I really value the conversation that we had today. And one of the things you said, Brother Idi, is that like you feel like we now want a time where people may collectively rise up like they did in the 30s, make them send out then 2 commissions for find out what are the social conditions, make them people across the region. They take to the street then and they go on bad. Why? And I think one research that I read once said that people generally take to the streets for 2 reasons. One of it is that if like 70% of the population, they suffocate, like they can't live, their living conditions unbearable, and so the only way like they could gasp for air, that if they collectively come out in the street. But that's another one way I want, because that the level of suffering what people go through for making them half a corner road. The other way is years of knowledge sharing, door knocking in the community, that you build one knowledge and it relates specifically to how people live their lives. So once people become knowledgeable, after one period of time, you don't have to holler for them for come, because they start to advocate in their own communities for the things where they impact for their life immediately. Now, the second one that my preferred option. So I really value honor sharing today collectively for honor knowledge, because it's another way for share with people around the world. And for learn from one another. So we want to keep this communication going, Brother Idi. And we want to thank today, we had our guests were Brother Idi Staurt, the President of Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association, TTRNA. We had Sister Christine Perriott, former BTL employee. We call her Fui Bushlaya. And we have Sister Dorla Staine. She's the spokesperson for the Belize Energy Workers for Justice. You could go to the Belize Energy Workers for Justice Facebook page and the Belize Communication Workers for Justice Facebook page for stay in contact and stay current with the actions what they have planned. They have information where we could learn from and have conversations in your homes, in the workplace, when they hang out. Yesterday was very successful. I try wait for tomorrow newscast, right? But really, the Belize Communication Workers for Justice, the Belize Energy Workers for Justice, come together yesterday, that if Michael Finnegan Market, and we did, along with other former workers from BTL and BEL, we stop and engage Belizeans about severance in particular, and let them know that we know the value of sharing knowledge. So initially the Run the Retro campaign was on social media. Now it's in the streets. So I could look out for it. They are making no pathway and the next. And it was just really, as the spokesperson Emily Turner said, it was overwhelmingly positive. I can't go without big up these particular community leaders who come out yesterday. We never, maybe one of them I may expect, but I definitely never expect this other one, which was a really big surprise, and we appreciate it at the talk to, and at the hurry up send this picture to Harlan Wagner so he could show them. Right? So we had Brother Philip Jones, who is the president of the Belize Bus Owners Association. He come out. I mean, know him and Conquer link. And then we also had big surprise for the day. We had Brother Glenfield Dennison, the Labour Senator out there. We kind of expect he usually come out. But who would never expect for come all the way from Penny Punta Gorda was Will Mejia of the Belize Territorial Volunteer. So when I look on a power picture right there, you have Brother Philip Jones, you have Brother Glenfield Dennison, you have Sister Emily Turner, who's the spokesperson for the Belize Communication Workers for Justice, and the far right is Brother Will Mejia, leader of the Belize Territorial Volunteers. I can't think of how much other people who could go in that power picture there. There's one other person I could think about for not, but don't worry, it'll work on it. So I really want to thank everybody who come out today for have this conversation with me. I have to thank thanks Sister Dorla, thanks Sister Christine, thanks Brother Idi. I definitely want to thank the security guard who was at work today. He's still here. Brother Shane Flowers here at XTV. We have Harlan Wagner as the Master Chief Operator, Technical Director. And downstairs at Crumb Radio, we have Larry Guerrero, known as Larry G. This show on repeat at 3:30. Is it 3:30? At 5:30 today on XTV. You could go to YouTube and Facebook, XTV Belize. Share this link. And remember, I want to thank her. Thanks again, Sister Dorla, Sister Christine, Brother Idi. Big thanks for being our guest today. Miss Brother Akka, but he should be here next Sunday. Remember, until then, on the organized people, I want to save the people.
Belize me come from the Belize City area, 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago, agreement by the slave master, talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This time we we have figure. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area, 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area.